The MSI GT77 is one of the most insane laptops that we've ever tested. It features a RTX 3080 Ti and a HX series CPU from Intel. Will this thing keep up with AAA games, or is it just another gimmick? Let's find out. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Epic PC channel, and today we're sitting down with the GT77, the latest all-out performance PC from MSI. It features an RTX 3080 Ti at 175 watts TDP with dynamic boost, an Intel i9-12900HX. It'll be interesting to see the performance difference of this versus the Ryzen, as that is highly anticipated. It also features 64 gigs of DDR5 4800 RAM, expandable up to 128 gigabytes. It also features a 2TB NVMe SSD with 4 expansion slots up to 128 gigs. And a 17.3-inch Full HD 360Hz screen. Now, the sample that we got provided from MSI is actually an engineer sample, so the design might be a bit different and the materials that are being used on the final product might be a bit different, but the performance is going to be the same. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the 3080 Ti and i9 matchup compares against some of the Ryzen builds that are out there. Obviously, when you're looking at the specs of the GT77, you look no further than the GPU. This thing features an RTX 3080 Ti, which is really awesome to see in a laptop. It wasn't too long ago that you couldn't even get an RTX 3080 Ti for your desktop because of the shortage, so it's cool to see that the GT77 has one of these. Being a NVIDIA card and a 3000 series card at that, it obviously has some of the next-gen NVIDIA technology, such as DLSS. Now, DLSS seems like a NVIDIA marketing term, but from my experience in testing this laptop and some of the other laptops we've been provided, it does actually make a huge performance difference, up to around 20% during gameplay, and to me, the quality of the image is not noticeable in terms of having it on or having it off. Of course, you'll also get features such as NVIDIA's ray tracing in 2nd generation. I would have loved to have seen this on the 4K version of the GT77, but unfortunately the engineering sample we've been provided is only 1K. NVIDIA has also baked in something called NVIDIA Reflex, which works to help the CPU and the GPU communicate. Combining something such as the i9 with the RTX 3080 Ti, you're obviously going to have a lot of crossover between the two. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this translates in terms of performance. On the design side, I won't talk too much about the actual quality and the materials being used here, as it is an engineer sample, but you can expect the form factor to be the same when it is finally released. Now, the most notable thing about the new design features of the GT77 is the rear cooling chamber. This protrudes about 7.5 centimeters from the start of the monitor hinges. Although this is necessary for MSI's new quad fan 7-pipe setup, it does make it a bit hard to carry around, and you wouldn't expect to carry something like this around. It also features RGB lighting at the rear, but honestly, I would have expected this to be a bit brighter and much more of a statement piece on a PC as expensive and as exclusive as the 77. With the trade-off of portability for that rear cooling chamber, you can expect a lot better cooling performance from something like the 77 when you compare it to something like the MSI GS77, which only features 2 fans and 6 pipes. This also has exhausts all over the machine, with one at the rear, one on the top, and one at the back of the machine. It pretty much has an exhaust all over this thing. Under absolute max fan settings, this pushes 63 decibels and 55 under normal load conditions. On this heating side, you're looking at about 33 to 35 degrees at the heating exhaust and 25 to 27 degrees at the wrist rest, which is really cool. It's great to see that MSI has taken a lot of heat from that wrist rest area, because on other models of laptops that we've tested, this can be painful to say the least, and I'm not going to name names of which laptop brand that is. Honestly, compared to the previous GT series model, this is actually quite a portable machine, and when you compare it to something like the original Titans that required 2 power banks, this thing is very portable and convenient. As for the IOs, on the right side, you've got 1 Ethernet, 1 HDMI, 1 DisplayPort, 2 Thunderbolts, and a standard USB. On the left-hand side, you've got a power connector, 2 standard USB ports, and an SD card reader, as well as a headphone jack. One thing I don't like about the IOs of the GT77 is the fact that they haven't used that massive rear of the GT77 to include some of the IOs. With the massive power bank that this thing requires to actually run, it's really nice to tuck away this power bank behind the actual machine, such as on the GS77 Stealth, which we will also be reviewing in a few weeks. On the peripheral side, it was really awesome to see a familiar brand name being partnered with MSI on this keyboard, MX Cherry. I was really hopeful that these things were going to be absolutely insane for a low keycap design, but they did not live up to the hype. They felt fragile and inconsistent at times, with different keys having different sounds depending on where they were placed on the actual keyboard. I was told by MSI that this might just be an issue with the engineering sample, so I expect better from the GT77 when it is finally released into production. The speakers were another standout feature of this laptop. They weren't as good as the GS77 speakers, but they did create a good sense of immersion during gameplay, and they didn't suffer from any of the other issues that other laptop speakers have suffered from in the past, such as having a hollow noise or noise coming from the bottom of the chassis. And now to the most important part of the review. How did the GT77 perform? I'm going to compare it to both a desktop version of the RTX 3080 Ti, which is water-cooled using a 9900K, and the GS77, which features a 3080 Ti as well. For Firestrike Ultra, the GT scored 9,318, while the desktop version scored 12,786, and the GS scored 7,114. This is a pretty solid performance from the GT, only being beaten out by 30% by the water-cooled version, but beating out the GS77 by around the same margin. In Firestrike Standard, the GT scored 28,615, while the desktop version scored 31,709, and the GS77 scored 23,995. This is even smaller difference from the desktop version of 10% in the 1K test, but beating out its smaller brother by a solid 18%. One of the tests I was most excited about was the R34 CPU test using Cinebench to see if Intel has made more improvements given the fierce competition from their AMD rivals. In Cinebench R34, it scored 23,039, which is actually pretty insane. To put it into comparison, the desktop Ryzen 9 5900X scored 21,707, and the desktop i9 11900K scored 15,730. These both are top tier expensive desktop CPUs, so MSI and Intel have really made some strides with their CPU performance and cooling. Now onto actual gameplay tests. In Doom Eternal at 1K, this was pulling 140 to 150 FPS on average. It has to be said that this is not really a 1K machine, and it's expected to have a 4K screen later on, but for portable 1K gaming on Ultra, it's pretty good stats. In Metro Exodus, DLSS was really the standout performer in terms of making this a playable experience. With DLSS turned off, the game was running at about 80 to 90 FPS on average, but pulled up to 110 to 120 FPS with DLSS turned on. It's pretty cool to see that software improvements can make such an awesome impact on performance. Finally, in Forza 5 at 1K, the game benchmarked at 83 FPS and had an average in-game FPS of about 80 to 90 FPS. When you compare it directly to the 3080 Ti running Forza, it benchmarked at 86 FPS and run at around the same FPS on average during gameplay. So we're really splitting hairs in terms of in-game performance between the desktop 3080 Ti and the GT77 on Forza 5. At the end of the day, the MSI GT77 is targeted at an extremely niche market. Sitting at almost 8,000 Australian dollars, it won't only hit your wallet hard, it's also not very portable. That being said, I can see it being used in maybe a commercial setting where you need the high power and portability, but also don't need it to be particularly small, and also to replace a desktop setting if you really need to have a portable gaming setup and also have the money to match. Despite this, the cooling design and performance of this machine is completely unmatched in the market today. In gaming, it was easily competing with even a water-cooled RTX 3080 Ti, and it breezed past its younger brother, the GS77. There's a lot of things to gawk at with the GT77. I feel like MSI has thrown out the playbook, forgotten rationale and reasoning, and created this with one thing in mind: pure performance. I honestly believe that's what the Titan series is all about. It's not about creating something that's affordable and easy to bring around. It's about sending a message and creating the most performant PC you can possibly create. It's what drove them to create that crazy dual power bank PC in the past, and it's probably going to push them to create something insane in the future that I will really enjoy. But as for the GT77, you've really got to ask yourself, is portability really worth the price tag put on this, or can a desktop PC suffice? I'll let you decide. Thank you guys so much for watching another epic PC video. As always, we'd appreciate your comments down below on what you thought about the GT77. We're also doing a giveaway. We're giving away a MSI gaming headset as well as a plushie and a gaming backpack. So if you're interested in that one, the links are in the description below and it's completely free and easy to enter.